So, a little update for you guys. All this lovely weather has meant we've finally caught up a bit, and I just had to shake this cell builder out because it's really was coming a bit lame. I added 8 frames of brood to it, and what's happened is there was a load of queen cells in the bottom that I missed that they made on some frames I added. They had larvae on them still because I was desperate for frames, but now things are catching up a bit, and that kind of scenario doesn't arrive so much now. I'm going to put my hood over for a few minutes because there's a lot of bees flying around. But so I've had to sort this out. I've got the graft to go in. That's my graft ready. Regarding grafting and queens, well, things are picking up a little bit. We've had some much better weather, as you probably know, and that's made a huge difference. So because of that, we're advancing, and in the colonies now we are seeing, surprisingly, very surprisingly, we're seeing queens that are mating that have not been mated or have been in a colony that has had no queen for at least 3 weeks. And I'm speaking to people all over Europe, and they're all saying the same, that remarkably, with a bit of good weather and a bit of nectar flow, things have suddenly changed around. What was a colony that was just about to become laying workers has managed to get a queen laying, and they're just exploding. You know, you pick it up and the frame is full of raw jelly. So it's absolutely brilliant news, and I've also been using a new method of introducing queens, which I'll probably show in the next video, but it's nothing rocket science. But what I'm doing is I'm still putting the queen in the cage. I haven't got one to show you here, but I put the queen in when I get her in the post, the ones you saw a couple of videos ago. I put her inside, leave her with the bees for 4, maybe 6 days, and then what I'm doing is I'm taking her out and I'm drenching the colony in syrup, and then I'm putting her on a frame. And when I put her on the frame, I cover her feet with syrup, her underneath her abdomen, and a little bit on the wings. And what happens, the bees just go mad and lick her to death. And before they stop licking her, you put her back on the frame, back inside, and then you cover the top of the frames with syrup as well. I'm not talking about drenching the queen. You don't put any syrup on the area where she is, but you just put syrup on the outlying frames, and that occupies the bees and it gives them that feeling the flow's running. And every single one I've done like that, they're introduced quicker. If you want to be absolutely sure, use a pushing cage. But sometimes with our bees here, even pushing cages are she might lay under the cage with black bees, the ones we have here, and then within a few days of her laying, they've killed her, and then they start making their own one with what she's got. But I better get this in first before I forget, because I'm going to sit there yapping otherwise. I just want to let this sink down. Be careful I don't drop this frame. There's my larvae grafted as usual. We carry it upside down, and I think I showed you before, but the back of this has a metal strip, so the frames don't fall through. So however you hold it like that, the frames are never going to fall out, and that's a really good way of keeping your frames safe from falling, because if they fall, that's when the damage is done. But saying that, a good builder, you can put larvae in that have been knocked a bit, and there's still no difference as far as I can work out, you know. So this builder isn't working as well as it was, but I've given it a bit of a reshuffle. Just want to get this. You see how many bees there is? Just so many bees hanging around. What I'm doing is I'm going to graft 2 more grafts for this week and try and get 20 to 30 grafts every night, successful in the finishers. In other words, virgins done after that, made. And then what I'm going to do is give this one a queen itself and move this colony away, because the queen that was in this colony died, or she swarmed or something, and I couldn't find her. And basically they'd made swarm cells in the bottom of this before I made it a builder the second time. So I've got pollen sub on here. I've just been looking around. I've got some other block of it I brought down, but I cannot find it for the life of me. So they'll finish that off, and I'll add some more. and hopefully that will give them that bit of protein they need. Just want to move that onto the frame over there, but I mean, there's only this tiny bit left, but I'm going to give them a bit more there, and I want to put the cover back on so I can put the feeder on. I mean, it's actually really nice and warm now, and that's why I'm kind of taking my time with things. I've got this is my breeder queen, this is all my cells, and this is how warm it is. I'm not worried about rushing to get this back in. My next job is to get this in. I will do straight away, but I'm just going to leave it there while I get this set up properly. The cells are in now, so they're safe basically. But now I want to put the top back on, and because I can't put it on because there's so many bees, I'm going to shake those bees, just knock them off onto the floor in front, and they'll crawl back into the hive as well as they can. Because I can't really do anything with this. I need to just get this lid on and get the feeder on, but I can't because it's full of bees. So you just have to do the obvious thing, and they will make their way straight back in, or as much as they need to. See how many bees there's on it? It's absolutely full of it. And that's the kind of thing, that's what you want to see when you've got a really good cell builder, you know. Full of bees. So I'm going to give that, I'm knocking that here, a few fell off then. I'm giving that a good knock when it's clear. And that's clear now, they'll make their way in to the front, up the front. And now I can put this on safely without squashing too many bees. And I think the expression goes, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, hey presto, the top is back on. So I've still got some feed in there from yesterday. There's a few bees that have come out from underneath that. This is kind of how slow it is. The bees are like, it's not cold, it's plenty warm enough, but they're just kind of not really doing much at the moment. There's no flow on, so it's really kind of difficult to stimulate the bees really. So I've been like, I shook them all out this afternoon. I checked for queen cells, no more in the frames. I'd removed most of them before. Absolutely no problem at all. But that's now, if that gives me 20 or 40 or 30 cells a day, maybe more, I'm happy with that. That's all I need. You see the bees are migrating their way now. Just give you an idea so you don't go, oh, you shouldn't have tipped them in front, but they're all just slowly making their way back in now. And they'll crawl up there and they'll just cluster on the front there overnight. So a couple of things I'll show you as well that I want to talk about that are a bit interesting for this year. So I'll bring my smoker with me. I'm just going to make my way down and park my truck here. And because at the moment, this morning we went up to Normandy to collect our syrup for the year. And as usual, the big lorry from Van Hess turned up on time, and all the beekeepers who go regularly to collect syrup there all turned up, and we all basically filled up our drums. It was exhausting because the pipe that delivers it weighs a ton. You've got this nozzle and it's all under high pressure, and you've got to really work your socks off to hold it in place while you get the syrup squirted into your bins, if you know what I mean. But it's good. But I just wanted to talk to you about these Mini Plus. And yes, there is a 5 stack Mini Plus. Now, is this unusual for the time of year? Probably a little bit, and I'll tell you why. Because these haven't swarmed. Now, I haven't had time to do anything with them, and they wouldn't necessarily be swarming because they've got fairly good queens in them. But the thing is, if you leave Mini Plus and don't do anything with them, they often can swarm. But what I want to just show you is I want to kind of tell you about how some things have been so bad this spring, it's actually helped us now. So I've got cells coming out of the cell builder. I've also, I think, sorted out the majority of my queen problems. I'm just going to put this back on my ear. Hopefully we're still on. I hopefully sorted out most of my queen problems, and what I'm going to show you now is how strong these Mini Plus are. Because that box there, and almost every single one behind you, are completely and utterly bursting full of bees. But because the weather was so bad at the end of our spring flow, and because I was giving them space when I did, they just kept stable, luckily. They didn't swarm. And now they're still laying, they're still brood, but they are absolutely bursting. So each one of those Mini Plus, that one there could probably give me 10 or 12 Mini Plus easily. There's so many bees in it. I'm going to show you in a minute just how many bees. It's absolutely packed full, which is brilliant. So what I'm going to come do starting tomorrow is we're going to go through the whole lot. We're going to harvest these frames. We're going to make small colonies with them, and we're going to be able to give them queens over the next few days. The original Mini Plus I think I made 16 just at the start of the bad weather. I think about 8 of them got mated in the end, so it's pretty slim figures. But it's surprisingly, even though the figures are bad, it's better than I actually thought it was going to be, because the queens that have mated are absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really pleased with that, and I'll show you a picture now. This is one of my Stoffham daughters, and the ones that I grafted last autumn, or end of last summer, they're already in hives, and boy, have they produced this spring. Absolutely colossal colonies, and they're gorgeous queens, bright orange, and you can see from this video how wonderful they are. But I want more of them, and I actually haven't used any other breeder queen yet this year, because I'm so stoked on the quality of the queens that I got from this breeder queen I bought last year, that I want to use loads and loads and loads. But I'm going to do another series of grafts from her, but in the meantime I'm going to graft my Marken breeder queen, and she is an amazing queen as well. I mean, absolutely prolific. So it's this kind of dilemma. The problem is you haven't got a lot of time, and you've only got so many colonies you can make, and you know you're going to sell some, so it's like, what do you sell? Because they're all good. You don't want to sell your best colonies. But going back to the matter in hand, I'm just going to put my gear on and show you what these are like, because they're just like a dream to have this time of the year. Because to have brood and frames of bees on Mini Plus now, when you get the recovery, is just the kind of bonus that you weren't expecting. And this is kind of how you can make something good out of what was once bad. So I'm just going to lift this off and show you. It's almost, they glued it on because there's so many bees in it. But I'll have to show you that this is what we're dealing with here. Look, the whole thing is so strong and so full of bees that tomorrow I'm going to come down and I'm going to start breaking these down, and every single one of these, every single frame is absolutely full of bees and brood. It's absolutely fantastic, and they're burning a bit of the honey. They put a lot of honey in the top 3 or 4 sections, but look how strong these are. So tomorrow I can come down and start breaking these down, you know. And I've got other ones here, another stack over there that's absolutely monstrous as well. I'll show you this one. It's all a bit overgrown here at the moment because I haven't had time, but I mean, this one, for instance, this is absolutely gargantuan too. I mean, I've got so many bees here to break down and make queens with. This is the same. I've actually closed that one off yesterday, but that's packed as well, completely full. I'll show you this one. Completely full. None of these are swarmed. I'm so lucky, you know. And they really seem to be good genetics. The couple over there, for example, they swarmed earlier on, but they're already full of bees again. They've recovered so well despite the bad weather. Look at that. I mean, this is what we're dealing with here, you know. It's just like there's so many bees to use up. So I've got to be careful. I don't want to squash these. I'm going to come back in a second with my smoker and just smoke them down. But so it's not at all doom and gloom like we originally thought. You know, it was like a crashing blow, all that bad weather. But what I'm doing is I'm going to be harvesting these. If I find the queen, as I start harvesting, she'll go into the bottom box. If the bottom box is really strong, that gets converted to a hive, and then the hive gets taken away somewhere and used for honey. And then I either leave one body in its place so that a lot of the flying bees go back to that, or even 2 if I need to, but it means I still can use it, or I take the whole thing away once it's dismantled, and it gives me more smaller colonies again. That's what I'm doing now, and I've really got to this point now where I've got such a backlog of work to catch up on that, you know, it's becoming really, really kind of tricky to keep up with it all. And today, for instance, we had to go and collect the syrup. I've got family issues as well because my son, who was at school last week, was in contact with a girl who has tested positive for COVID. So I've had to, then my other son couldn't go to school as well because they've all been mixing at the weekend. I know it sounds a bit of a bizarre situation, but that's what we have to do. And we're back isolating at home just in case my son had picked it up and passed it on to me. We've all got tests tomorrow. I mean, it's just crazy. And I've got to just find time to finish all these. And I've still got a few queens to release. But overall, I'm nearly back up to where I was. I'm nearly back up to having all my finishers at full strength, because I've got quite a few here that I've just re-queened. They get a bit swarmy sometimes in the spring, so they're nice and strong. The new queen in there, and then she's laying away, and it's amazing how they'll finish cells even when there's only 3 or 4 frames of brood that's hatched. As long as they've got some young nurse bees and you don't overload that finisher, you can really knock out some really nice queens even with smallish brood. And for example, all the this swarm I had, I don't remember, I told that was on that little tree there in that box. That's now queen right. That's had a new queen, but they didn't accept the first one. The first one that was there was one that was their queen that swarmed with them, but she didn't mate. So I had to give them another queen. But all these ones are swarms I brought back. They're all mated. They're all up and running, all laying. So really, I'm kind of delighted the fact that things are turning around so well, which has been a surprise. So where are we with the flow? Difficult to really say. There's a couple of things to say about that. I think it's going to be a little bit later this year, which every year I say, and it never is, but I honestly think it will be this year, because usually it arrives bang on the 15th or 15th, 16th, 14th of June. But I'll take you down here in another part of the garden, and I'll just show you something else. You can see how lush everything is. It's just so much rain we've had and so much growth, and now you've got the temperatures. So look at this little lime tree I planted a couple of years ago, and I absolutely love this small leaf lime. It's a little bit dwarfed in here, but it will eventually make its way through that gap, and we'll have some lime honey hopefully coming from that in a few years' time. But isn't that gorgeous? A perfect setting for it. So let's just go through here. I'll just show you another tree we've got. The tree we've got here is an acacia, and I'll tell you why, getting back to why everything's a bit late. This acacia is in flower now. I'm just going to put the camera down so you can see, and I can just tilt it up a bit. But this is in flower, and it's not, if you know what I mean. The weather was so bad that it's delayed the flowering so much that now it's almost like not going to flower much at all, and it's virtually finished. And the reason being is, I know it's a really odd thing to describe, but it was my daughter's birthday last year, 19th of May. And it was her 18th, and we had friends here, and she had a big party, while COVID was calming down. And we took pictures from the back of the tree with all 10, 15 friends in front of it, all having fun. And the tree was absolutely covered in blossom. That was the 19th of May. This year, we are now the 6th, 7th of June, and this is what we've got. Completely different set of stats for this year, which I've never, ever seen before. So it just shows you how crazy, like that cat, everything is. But there is hope. Things will get better. The best is yet to come this year, I'm sure of it, and we're moving forward. So I've got that many colonies that are now ready to go into boxes. The wonderful thing is, at last, I can now use up a lot of hives that I bought 3 years ago. That I nearly filled a lot of them about 2 years ago, but then I had that as winter losses, so I couldn't use them. And then I had to kind of bite my tongue, just bide my time. And I've been looking at those hives for ages, and now I can use most of them. But the great thing is, as well as maintaining the stock I have to maintain for my pollination contracts, I'm also now able to split the splits again, which is so satisfying, because you basically get a new colony by just taking 3 frames away, leaving the existing queen, or taking her away and giving a new queen, depends where you're mating. But if you do that here, for example, the results are fantastic. You bring the nukes back, you get them mated here, and it's a doddle, because usually they're made with really decent queens. What I'm saying is my options are changing. I've luckily been able to give myself and built myself into having better options now, because I put the work in and I've kind of round the corner. It's not perfect, but it does work. And I'm hoping that this winter I'll be going in to the winter with a reasonable honey crop. I won't say it'll be massive. I just don't know. You never count honey till it's in the barrel, because it can look fantastic. Then this spring it could all go again. Look what happened this spring. In the UK, for example, a lot of guys I know had virtually nothing. Then it all disappeared. And in the last 10 days, some of them have had 5 and 6 supers just pouring into their hives, which is amazing. So I'm really pleased that they've actually got something to harvest, because, as I mentioned in my last video, that kind of dearth line that starts was just hitting the south coast of the UK. Now it's moving north, but people right up further north in the UK, they're getting really good harvest now, because everything's coming for them just at the right time, and their colonies are great. They haven't swarmed because they had it so cold before. So where there's bad, there's good somewhere else, you know. And I think you just got to kind of, like Ian Stepler says, you've got to be absolutely ready to dive into any opportunity you can if you see it there. And that's the key to it. You just got to keep everything going, no matter how hard it seems. You've got to just keep everything ticking along, and then suddenly you get the chance to have a surge. And I can make all these, for example, I can make all these mini plus very quickly now, and then we've got the flow coming behind that, which will give them time to build with a flow on. I know after that we're virtually done, but it means that I can split everything that is splittable after the flow, and then make even more colonies. So that's the time. So we've got 2 lines of splits to go now, one now pre-flow and one during and after the flow. And once that's done, then it's the harvest, and then we are done for the year. Huge amount of work to do though, but we'll get there. There's a lot here I can split, but I do need to get another cell builder ready. I do need to harvest brood from some of these colonies to stock that cell builder, but there's enough resources here to do it, which makes me really happy, you know. So, so that was a bit of an update on how things are going, and I'm pretty happy with the way things are progressing now. I mean, I was really having this weather we've got is weird. It's like, I can't believe it can be this beautiful when it really wants to be. You know, it's like amazing weather, not too hot. This is what we haven't had for such a long time. We've actually got weather that is not too hot, not too cold, just kind of about right, lightish winds. Everything is just beautiful. You know, it's like, you know, living the dream when you get weather like this. And I'm just trying to be out every day I can to make the most of it, because, as I said, you've got to get out when you get the opportunity. But it's all good. I mean, you just look around and everything's so lush, you know, so it's terrific. We had a bit of a problem because my main grass cutting mower had packed up for this area, so I've had to use the brush cutter to cut everything, which is another thing in itself. I've been walking literally hundreds of kilometres a day, I think, trying to keep on top of the grass. But there's a bit more to cut into there, as you can see. It's a bit long there, but hey, it's no problem. But I should really go into making hay. But that's about it. I'm going to film releasing one of those queens in the next couple of days, and then show you how I do that, because it's a bit of fun. And then we'll be into adding supers to everything, because we're going to be checking colonies that have had queens added, and then adding the supers, because they'll need space, not just to give them space for honey, but if anything does come in the next couple of weeks, we want them to have space in. They need to know where that super is above them, otherwise they'll just clog up the brood nest. So it's also a very tricky time, because I talked before about using loads of hives up. Well, I've got a lot of hives to use, but not all of them are ready and clean. I spent so long getting nukes cleaned in the spring, I kind of put the hives to one side. I've run out of frames. I've got literally 12 frames of foundation left, and that's it. So I've got to make up, which is quick. I can do 300 or 400 in the morning, but it's just another massive lot of work to do. I need mini plus frames by another 250 of those. But I have got a lot of honey in frames. All the mini plus we put on top of colonies this spring, they basically filled top boxes completely. For example, these two, they didn't put any brood in there. All the brood stayed in there, and they just filled that up. Same for this one. Those two are full of honey. These 3 here, completely full of honey. 3 of them, and I've got another 2 the other side. So I've got all these frames of honey that, to be honest, I'm probably going to store away because I don't need them right now, and I'm probably going to add them to colonies last thing in the year to get them full up to their weight before the winter, which actually worked really well for me last year. But because of my experience that I've learnt about that, it gives you that experience to know what you can do with them, rather than just go, I'll melt them down. Then you melt them down, you get your wax back, and you can give the honey back to the bees because it's clean. But it's still a waste of resources, really, when they've got honey just to add 2 other colonies to boost them up. So, it is what it is. So on that note, I'll catch you later in the week. Bye for now.